All right, welcome to the Over and Under podcast show. It is yours truly, your host Charles Comer. We have our also co-host James, who's over there betting because he's trying to get his life together, and then we have our special guest, the one and only, the Longhorn fan since he was a baby. G, how you doing today?
I've had better Sundays, but we're on to
Haven't we all?
Vandy.
We're on the Vandy. All right, so guys, we got a lot to talk about. What a crazy week 8 it was of college football. A lot of upsets, some injuries, but most of all, the polls have shifted completely. The AP poll did come out today. We do have a new number one team. So James, go ahead and clap for yourself. Oregon is number one in the AP polls. They haven't been number one since 2012, so it's been a long time for you, James. So, we understand you as a Duck fan, you've been through some rough times, but y'all have had the most money, so we don't understand why you are haven't been number one for so long. But
I wouldn't say rough times. We've had good seasons every year. It's just we haven't, finished it. So no rough times over here. We just haven't finished.
Must be nice.
well, we'll move forward. Hopefully, y'all do finish and hold a championship up, but I highly doubt that.
Oh,
With how the number one spot, everyone who's been number one is usually getting knocked off the week after, or they had a bye and then they get knocked off. But guys, I want to go ahead and I got 12 important questions for you today. We're gonna go over most of the games, and then we're gonna preview a couple of games at the end. First question, I want to ask G. G, who are your top five teams right now in college football?
We spoke last night on that Twitter space, and there was a couple of different scenarios that I gave you. So before the poll got released, Oregon was my number one. Number two was a bit of a flip flop for me. I personally thought Georgia should be up there, but they have the one loss, so obviously they take a hit. So prior to the polls, I said Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas. That was my top five. Seeing it today, I think teams 2 through 4 could all be interchangeable.
Okay, James, what about you? What is your top five?
I don't know. I There's so many undefeated teams still, but I'm not saying they all deserve to be in the top 10. But Penn State, I feel like they could have jumped to two. So I would say Oregon, Penn State, Georgia, Miami, Texas. Right? I'm missing one.
No, that's it.
That's about yeah. So that's what I see
So
it, but
yeah.
it's not I'm not the AP, so
So why do you think the AP has kept Miami out of that top five with their undefeated season, right? And everyone above them, except for Penn State and Ohio State, are undefeated. Everybody else above them have a loss. What's the query against Miami?
I think it's those comeback games that they shouldn't even been having to come back into. You go down against Virginia Tech, and then the next week you go down against who they play, uh,
Cal?
California.
Cal. Yeah, so I think that's what the AP is holding against them. I could be wrong, but that's just the way I see it. And then they had a blowout game. They played really well against Louisville this week, so I want to say it helps them, but I think they could have moved up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with the AP polls. Actually, I don't like how LSU came up so far, but I understand they've been winning games. Bama does drop all the way to 15. I don't think we've been that low since the Saban era. So yeah, it's a rough out here for fans. But some surprises. You got Iowa State at 10, BYU at 11. Clemson is number 9. Tennessee jumps up to number 7, and then you got Miami, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Oregon. So top 10 looks solid, but I still I don't know. It's some controversy that's going to go on in these next couple of weeks, right? These will change by next week. Texas A&M plays Texas A&M plays LSU. Oregon has to go play an okay team. I wouldn't call it Shaker, Illinois. So they'll have another ranked win on their schedule. And then Texas has to go play Vandy. Vandy is number 25 now, so that is a ranked win if they win that game. So that's how we have to look at it. All right, moving forward, I'm going to ask these questions. I want to get both of your opinions. I'm going to give you some facts about the games, right? I just want you to be like, hey, yes, no, or go into your full detail of how you want to talk about it. Okay.
Oh, we get a
So
guess, and he gets the whole explanation. I just had yes or no the other day.
I
That's
said
crazy.
yes. Oh, whoa, that was 2 questions. That's actually
All
2
right.
questions.
No, I see how this goes. All right, go ahead.
Okay. The question is Georgia back, or were the lights too bright for Texas in the Georgia game? Okay. As we all know, Texas gets knocked off, the number 1 team. They lose 30-15 to Georgia at home in Austin. F1 was there. There were a lot of events going on in Austin, so it was packed. Carson Beck was 23 for 41, 175 yards, 3 interceptions. Trevor Etienne basically didn't have a great game, but he ran the ball efficiently. 19 carries, 87 yards for 3 touchdowns. Georgia offensively wasn't clicking, but their defense, however, sacked Texas 7 times, had 10 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. A healthy Malik Williams and a healthy Jalen Walker is a nightmare for any team on any given Saturday. James, we'll go to you first since you were mad didn't give you the chance to say so many questions last time. How do you feel? Is Georgia back, or were the lights too bright for Texas?
I don't think it's either one. I think it's just Georgia's defense just played outstanding. Georgia's offense looked abysmal. They did not look good at all. They didn't. I mean, they scored when they needed to, like with those 3 touchdowns, but those are like goal line touchdowns. So I'm not even giving them that. But 3 picks to Carson Beck. It was what I told you. This man does not show up in big games. This man threw 3 picks, and he lucky that his defense showed up that last night, because if not, Texas would have ran away with it. That defense is just what showed up that last night. Texas defense played extremely well too, but you can only do so much if you're just out there almost every play, 3 and outs and stuff. So I don't think it was just more of Texas. It was the lights were too big for Texas, or if Georgia's back. I think Georgia's going to lose another game down the line, but I think it was just more Georgia's defense just showed up to play, and that's really all I saw.
Okay, now G, before you answer this question, I just want to say some things on the Texas side, right? They've recruited well. They've had a pretty good start to the schedule. They had a good win against a Michigan defense that was rated pretty high this year. Texas wanted to come to the SEC. They wanted to have these matchups. They wanted the attention. They got beat in the trenches. Tell me how you feel about that.
Again, we spoke last night, and there's been some clips circulating on Twitter. They got beat in the trenches, but it wasn't as – I don't think it was as big of a gap as I thought it was originally. There's several plays where, Kelvin's defender ends up making a sack, but it's because Quinn doesn't step up when he needs to, or he doesn't evade. He's stepping into sacks. He's stepping into pressures and things like that. Yes, they got beat in the trenches, but it comes down to how it's drawn up. That DC had Sark's number. There's one play in particular on the last 4th down before Georgia eventually kneels the game out. Quincy's an odd front, 3-man front. and then they just shift into a zero pressure or an all-out blitz, a zero uh, front, and he doesn't see it until the very end and has to get rid of it off his back foot. That's just excellent coaching because you scheme up for this 3-man down front, and then all of a sudden it's an all-out blitz. And Quinn has been shaky the entire game, so ultimately it's maybe he catches it, maybe he doesn't, but he was not going to read that the way that he needed to. To answer your question, the original question, I think Georgia's defense, as long as they're playing at the level that they're at, they're going to be hard to beat, clearly. Regardless of how Beck plays, I say regardless, 40 attempts, 4 yards per throw, 3 picks. If you tell me that, I think Texas wins that game. Texas gift wrapped a lot of opportunities. I think 4 of their scoring drives were all of like 40 yards or less. They only had 1 drive of that started in UT territory and went the length of the field. Texas gave them time and time again. Defense capitalized whenever they could, forcing Georgia into field goals, but it was a bend but don't break. That's how PK plays his defense, and unfortunately, you're going to break. ETN was very efficient running the ball, like you said. I was of the mindset that there was a lot going on for Texas in Austin. I know it's great. That's what you want, but the celebrities being there and the former athletes being there, F1, it all seemed like the perfect storm for, crybaby Kirby, for him to tell his players, hey, look, we don't want the pictures. We don't want the glitz, the glamour. We want speeding tickets, and we want to go get this dub. And, I mean, it worked.
So that's crazy. So just a couple more questions. How concerned are you about your running game? Because you played mostly behind all game, really. So you really couldn't establish much of a running game. But in the first half, y'all were under 100 yards, right? You've only rushed for 29 yards the whole game, and your fans were throwing water bottles on the field and force the referees to overturn a pass interference call. So I know we talk about Kirby and the speeding tickets, but if we're talking about class, I know we keep Austin weird, but I thought we were at least classy over there.
Oh, I mean, absolutely, it was a classless move by the student section. I think anybody that saw it would say that, fan or not. Now, how is this any different from fans storming the field and running into opposing players and coaches? Because they've told their fans, hey, don't storm, we get the fines. Don't tear down our goalposts, we get fines, this, that, and the other. They still do it. It's not stopping anybody. I'm not encouraging fans to litter, right? Especially at your home field. Did they know that they would eventually get the call overturned? No. Do I want them to do it every time? No. But listen, somebody's got to be held accountable. If the SEC wants to fine the athletic department, so be it. Because at the end of the day, that was OPI at best. And so if they went and discussed it and changed their minds, kudos to them for having the guts to do it.
Okay. Kudos to them. So as we move forward, Georgia is going to play Florida on November 2nd. Texas has got to go to Vandy. I wouldn't say it's a trap game, but it's definitely a game that's not going to be easy like previous Vandy. Overall, Texas is number 2. I mean, Georgia's number 2. Texas goes down to number 5. They each have a loss in the conference now, and the SEC becomes more controversy. All right, James. You're going to get the second question. I'll make sure you don't feel left out, okay? Now, as I said, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to give you a little bit of details about the game, and I'll have your answer for it. Bama and the Vols, Tennessee, both needed a win. Tennessee gets to win. Do you feel like Tennessee's win feels like they're progressing or they just survived? Bama once again goes on the road and can't find an explosive play to win. That's kind of how they've been surviving on the offense if it is explosive plays. Jalen Milroe has a horrible game. He looks like he was banged up. He can't run the Bama DeBoer offense because he's a running quarterback. He's not a passing quarterback. Jam Miller and Haynes had 20 carries while Jalen Milroe had 14. So there's a discrepancy there that needs to be shifted. Jalen Milroe missed a lot of throws. Pretty jarring interception in the end zone, which was a surprise, which kind of kept Tennessee in the game. Only 75 yards running on the ground. And for sure, the defense had a better game. Okay. Defense played well. They had 3 recorded sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 tackles for loss. Overall, though, the Volunteers get the win. Nico was 14 for 27, 195 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The star of Tennessee's team is Sampson, 26 carries, 139 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. The stat of the night, Alabama was 3 for 14 on third downs. Tennessee was 6 for 14 on third downs. Once again, defense is still not having a better time in getting off the field, but still Tennessee did record a pretty good amount of third downs. So, how do you feel about this game, James? Did the Vols get the win? Do you feel like they're progressing or they're surviving? And you can also comment on Alabama. I don't want to leave that out. Like I don't want to take my
Oh,
hit.
I was gonna do that regardless.
Oh, okay.
But this game was ugly, bro. By both quarterbacks, but more like I didn't expect Milroe to come out the way he did. And like you said, he might be hurt for all I know, but sheesh, man. Yeah, it looked ugly. Nico looked like Nico. I thought it was gonna look like, and I thought this is the reason they were gonna lose the game. But Samson still came out. I know I said on the other episode that Samson can't carry them to a dub against Alabama. Hey, I can admit when I'm wrong, bro, because Buddy was carrying them all the way for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. Because these 2 quarterbacks, they didn't look good. I was gonna say trash against trash, but they're not trash QBs. They just played like trash this game. The defenses, I don't know if it was more of the defenses playing that well, or is that they just couldn't capitalize on the offensive side. I don't know, because I was watching some of these clips and some of the highlights, and they'd be driving and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's just like a bad throw, and now they're like 3rd and 10 or something, and then they just shit the bed for some reason. And then Milroe on the other side of the ball, some of those passes, I'm like, bro, where are you throwing at? So I would say it's more surviving on both sides of the ball, Tennessee and Alabama. Alabama ended up losing, but I think this could have went either way. But I don't see anything that's really impressed me with Tennessee. They've looked like the same Tennessee that I was talking about a few episodes ago. Nico still looks like he's not as comfortable in the pocket like he was at the beginning of the year after those 2 games that one they lost and one that was super close. On the other side, Alabama, I think it's more the offense more than anything. I like you said, Milroe, I don't think he's super comfortable in that offense at all. He wants to do what he's there to do, but with that scheme and everything, I just don't think he fits in it. And to go with that many attempts and completions and then 2 picks and then that crucial pick at the end too. So I think they just got to let him just do what he does instead of trying to have him be this Washington quarterback that he had last year. It just doesn't fall that way. And until they let him do that, I think they're going to keep dropping games like this, like tough games like this, because you know what you have. You just got to let him play the way he knows how to play. You can't just have him be like a system quarterback that you've had at Washington and everything. And I think that's the downfall right now with Alabama.
All right. G, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like the Vols were, they got the win? Were they surviving, or do you feel like they're progressing?
I was in our group message very open about Tennessee possibly looking, I think the term y'all use on this show is fraudulent or being on fraud watch.
Yes.
Heupel is known for having this very efficient, explosive offense. And like James said, maybe Nico hasn't gotten to the point where he can run it. They had Hooker who was throwing that thing last year, letting it fly. And now if they're not playing Kent State, they're relying on Sampson to kind of carry him. I think Tennessee did enough. I wouldn't call it progression. I think they were just not the worst team yesterday. Alabama, listen, whenever the announcers tell you that Milroe has targeted the 17-year-olds, 20 times, that's an issue. I think if you're Tennessee, you know where to key in on, and if you can take away his first read, which is going to be Ryan Williams a lot of the time, if they're not running the ball well, I think you can put Alabama in some situations where they're uncomfortable. If Milroe's not healthy, just add that to the list of things that could go wrong. Like James said, it looked sloppy at times. They'd get themselves into what looks like a decent position. They have a sack or get stopped behind the line, and they're behind the chains. I think Tennessee is who I think they are. They're a good team, not great. I think Alabama has the pieces to be a great team, but they just can't seem to get it going so far throughout the year.
I agree with both of you. As far as Alabama, I just feel like we just flip flop. Like offense was doing okay, and the defense was really bad, and now defense took it up a notch. Right? Kept, like you say, you can go 3-and-out. Your offense goes 3-and-out. Your defense is just on the field so many times. Like you're gonna get tired. You're gonna give up a big play. Like it's just how football works. Um, Excited to see how they finish the season. Alabama goes to Missouri comes to Alabama, and then Tennessee has an off week, and then they have to play. Sorry, Kentucky. We already know Kentucky's defensive line is something to mess with, but we'll talk about that on the review or the preview show of next week. All right, G, I'm gonna give you the first question now. James got his two first questions. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
Okay.
Now, like you said, we have a word, a fraud alert. But this whole thing was a fraud off. Okay. Auburn versus Missouri. Let me talk to you for a second. Missouri comes back from a 14-point deficit in the fourth quarter. Brady Cook, awful game. 11 for 22. They even brought in the backup who was 10 for 21. Mind you, Brady Cook went to the hospital, which is across from the stadium, and said, I only got 2 games left in the stadium. I'm not going to spend it in the hospital, and came back. Me and James have mentioned on earlier shows that Brady Cook doesn't look well. Like, he doesn't look healthy. He doesn't look like himself. So, one, there's a quarterback problem in Missouri. Missouri only recorded 81 rushing yards. No big game from Luther Burden or Weeze. About average, 60, 80 yards. Well, 60, 56 yards, right? Nothing big. Peyton Thorne and Hugh Freeze couldn't put it together in the fourth quarter to save their life. These are their second half drives or fourth quarter drives. Miss field goal, punt, turnover on downs in the game. Peyton Thorne was 17 from 29, 176 yards on the ground or on the day. Who's the bigger fraud? Auburn or Missouri? Because Missouri is 6-1, guys. I just want to point that out. Missouri is 6-1, and they are probably number 5 in the SEC ratings. The only loss they have is to Texas A&M, who G thinks is potentially a fraud. So, G, how do you feel? Who do you feel is a bigger fraud in this case?
It might be Auburn because Missouri is a bad team. And that's saying something because Auburn is a really bad team. They managed to lose to Oklahoma, and you see what's happening in Norman right now. They're lucky to get a touchdown in Oklahoma right now, but they still managed to beat Auburn. Hugh Freeze and them boys, they can't get right on offense. Their defense keeps them in games. They have a pretty good defense. But Missouri, listen, this is coming from somebody who just had a big old piece of humble pie with the game yesterday. Missouri hadn't played anybody either. Let's get one thing clear. They're 6-1, but if you look at those 6 wins, they got Buffalo in there. They got Murray State in there, Boston College, who had a flash in the pan at one point. Missouri's not beating good teams. And I can say this now because my formerly number 1 ranked Longhorns hadn't beat anybody, and they were ranked number 1. So Missouri is struggling against the likes of Auburn. They end up looking like a scrub team against A&M, who A&M, they have their own thing going on. They only beat Mississippi State by 10. Question mark, asterisk there. That's its own thing. So to answer your question, I think it might be them Tigers from Auburn. They might be the bigger frauds because you have the game not in hand, but you managed to knock out the starting quarterback. You have a 2-possession lead, I think into the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, and you managed to
into the
blow
fourth
it.
quarter, yes.
Because right now you're playing for pride. If you're Auburn, you're not playing for the SEC championship game. You're not playing for a playoff spot. You got bowl eligibility and you got pride. Because they still have recruits committing to Auburn. I know why, because it's bag chasing, but they have good recruits that they're trying to impress. And losing this game to Missouri is not a good look.
Okay, James. We appreciate you, G. I appreciate that saying. James, go ahead and tell me who you think is more of a fraud, because I'm excited to hear this from you.
It's definitely Missouri, bro. We've already know what we get from Auburn every week. Peyton Thorne can't throw the ball to save his life. He got 2 outstanding receivers, and I don't even know if they've even close to 1,000 yards, but they struggle so much on offense. And for Missouri to just drop the ball like they usually do, that's Missouri definitely. So this is why I don't bet on Missouri anymore, because of this. They don't show up when they need to show up in these games. They struggled against they lost to A&M. I mean, they should have beat A&M if they were so good. They barely beat Boston College, and then the game before that, I forgot who they played, but they barely beat them as well.
Vandy
in double overtime.
Yeah, so and they probably should have lost that game, but regardless, Brady Cook, he hasn't looked like the Brady Cook at the beginning of the season, but again, they were playing non-conference, just lower tier teams. And then they get into the SEC, and then we really see Missouri. And no, we all thought like after the season that they had last year and coming off of that, they were gonna have a better year. Yeah, they're 6-1. Yeah, they're 5th or whatever in the SEC, but they're not impressive at all. At all. Luther Burden's out there doing what he can, but Brady Cook ain't throwing him the ball.
Cardio. We're out there doing cardio.
Yeah, it's just running routes, That's all it is. So Missouri is like the biggest frauds of the year, and they're probably gonna win a few more games just because they don't. I don't know. They don't play. They're not playing anybody else. They have a few more SEC games that are big, but other than that, bro, like they probably go like what 9-2 or something, 9-3, but it's like a ugly 9-3, I think, because bro, they're not good. They're just not good. They play Mississippi State November 23rd. They're gonna win 17-10. Arkansas at the end of the year probably could lose. South Carolina's defense probably gonna hurt them boys bad like A&M did, and then Oklahoma and Alabama. So I don't know. They're just frauds, bro. That's all I got. They're frauds.
To answer your question, the number 1 receiver on Auburn's offense, Cam Coleman, has 259 receiving yards this year.
A freshman, right?
Freshman. He's ranked 260th out of all wide receivers in college football.
And your best receiver, Luther Burden, out there just running routes for nothing. So
yeah,
go Mizzou, go Tigers.
Go Mizzou. Luther Burden on the season only has 447 receiving yards. It's 85th in the nation. 6 touchdowns. There's a freshman in Ohio State has better stats than that. Just want to say that. But yeah, so for me, to be honest with you, yeah, it's definitely Mizzou. I don't see them winning a lot. I don't see them winning a lot more games, but I think they'll pull something out. The quarterback situation will be fun to watch because if Brady Cook is really cooked, I mean it's over with. To be honest with you, so that's how we will look at that. Now, James, don't be mad at me, all right? Because we're kind of gonna skip around, but I wanted to get to this because I got some questions to ask you. Oregon had a great game, okay, a good win, but they got slightly exposed, just a slightly exposed. They go to the Boilermakers on a short week, right? On a Friday night, they win 35-0. Dylan Gabriel, now who's a Heisman contender, throws 21-25, 290 yards, two touchdowns, one interception. Tess Johnson, Stewart, Winnington all had a great game, all recorded a touchdown for this game. Your defense had a great showing, 10 tackles for loss, three sacks. However, y'all gave up 208 rushing yards. That is the second most y'all have given up, because the first was to Boise State, was to Ashton Gentry, which I don't blame you. Okay, and he Michael Myers in the backfield. Y'all do host Illinois next week, but what's up with the run defense? Should we be concerned, or was it just a short week? Just need to get back healthy. Just the turnover was too much.
I think it's just a short week, to be honest. Um, we just came off a big game last Saturday, and then we playing on a Friday. Yeah, I think it's just that. We gave up 141 rushing yards against Ohio State, so I don't think I'm too concerned about it. I think it was more just, man, we tired, bro. Like, we just went out there, beat Ohio State. We got to turn around, get ready for who we play, Purdue, super quick. I think it's just more just exhaustion. Good Lord. And just, just a little bit of a few injuries here and there, but I'm not concerned at all. What I'm concerned is fucking Dylan Gabriel keep throwing picks every game. That's what I'm more concerned about. Yeah, he plays good. Yeah, he's been outstanding, but since the beginning of the season, he was like doing really well, like, throwing the ball 300 yards, 3 touchdowns here and there. But as of late, he's been getting real just loose with the ball a lot, and he's been throwing a lot more interceptions. We got to cut that out super quick, because season's not getting any easier, and we gotta finish and have a good spot going into the playoffs and stuff. And we can't have that going into, say, we play a Texas or something like that, because after that, bro, it's a runaway. So we got to clean that up more than anything. Run defense. Yeah, I'm not too worried. It's Purdue. We 35-0, bro. Yeah, I'm not worried at all.
Okay. How you feel about James' team, G? How you feel about that rushing statistic?
It was weird. I didn't know Oregon was playing. I got on my app and I saw that they were playing Purdue, and I was even more confused whenever I saw it was only like 14-0 at halftime. Because the Ducks, high flying offense, no pun intended. If you're going into Purdue, me personally, right, I would hate, off a short week, I understand that, but to only be up 14-0 against this team, allowing them as many rushing yards as you have, you're, like you said, Charles, you're showing what a potential weakness we may have. Now, it's only a weakness if it comes back to bite you. Plenty of people get through a season with, chinks in the armor, if you will. But a weakness costs you, and it has yet to cost Oregon. But watch out for this Illinois team. They play good defense. Bielema's got them boys playing good defense, and they run the ball. I can tell you right now, Illinois is a better offense than what Purdue is, and their defense might be better than theirs as well. So I don't know if Oregon probably pulled back on the reins late, but if what's his name? Gabriel is throwing picks and they're allowing rushing yards, Illinois might sneak up on you. Until Oregon has to play, I don't know. Do they play Penn State?
I don't think so. Hold on, I'll pull it up right now.
They play Michigan.
No, Oregon's going to roll. I mean, they could easily go undefeated. I don't see anybody slowing them down. Ohio State was the nation's best hope, and Will Howard dropped that in a blaze of glory. He ruined their chances completely. So Oregon, I think, can share that weakness up by the end of the year. But it is something to look out for. If you catch a good running team that plays a good, competent offense, I think Oregon could be in a ball game like they were with, say, Boise State, and not blow out teams that they should, like Purdue, which they ended up doing. But again, 14-0 with the now number one team in the country, it just looks like you could probably raise an eyebrow at it.
And
Okay.
I was saying this about Illinois before we got on the mic to Charles. I was like, they play Illinois this week or whatever. I said it could be a problem, and he wanted to say, I was like, is it really a problem? And
I mean,
they
but
play
I was
they play
saying, is it
good ball.
really a problem? Is it really a problem? I think y'all just had a short week. I think that's a
And the what
scheduling problem, and y'all had to travel far. I had to travel a long time. I don't know where Purdue is, but I know you had to travel far from Eugene. Like,
From Indiana.
yeah, so that's on a different coast, basically.
but what else to say? Oh, I was just saying that I don't like to underestimate some of these ranked teams just because it's like Illinois or whatever. You saw what we were at the beginning of the season, beating Idaho 17-14, and then almost losing to Boise State because Genty's a animal. So I don't like to underestimate these teams going forward. And Illinois, Michigan could be a problem because Michigan, that's all they do now is run the ball. So
Michigan
if this
ain't a
week
problem.
is
Michigan ain't a problem.
Michigan's not a problem.
Chalk it up as a dub. They got like 3 quarterbacks and they've all thrown like 8 interceptions. You're good.
But either way, if this running thing is such a concern, then we got to clean that up before going forward. But I'm not too worried about it, like I said.
Nah.
Okay. All right. So moving forward, now this is a funny question because it's a team we spoke about on our first question, how they're not ranked high enough. Miami, really good team, or are they just running a better track meet than their opponents? Okay. In Miami's last 3 games, they've scored 129 points. Their opponents 117. They needed a miracle at Virginia Tech to win. They needed a huge comeback on the West Coast against Cal, and they were in a boat race against Louisville. Sorry. Miami's offense, however, it was as good as it can get. 3-3 on the red zone, 9 for 15 on third downs. Out of the 10 drives, Miami scored on 6 of them, 5 touchdowns, 1 field goal. Defense, Miami's defense, on the other hand, shaky. Because this is why I asked this question. They gave up 45 points in this game. Louisville scored 4 out of 5 drives in the second half. Cam Ward was 21 of 32, 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher combined for 25 touches, 162 yards. You had a big day for Samuel Brown and Xavier Restrepo. They both recorded over 100 yards and recorded a touchdown. Miami has the 8th best running defense in the nation. They held Isaiah Brown to 9 carries, 56 yards. However, the secondary gave up 4 touchdowns to Tyler Shue, 6 receptions, 107 yards to Ja'Cory Brooks with 2 touchdowns. Miami is a really good team, guys, or are they just running a better track meet than their opponents? Go ahead, James.
Oh, thought it was G, but all right. I think their defense is just what's messing them up, to be honest, because the offense is just outstanding. Cam Ward, crazy good. But if you look back, they should not go down as much as they do against Virginia Tech or a Cal, like they did. Luckily, they have a Cam Ward as a quarterback, because any other Miami team, that's, put a knife in them, they done, bro, because they're not coming back. So luckily they have this great quarterback and explosive offense, but they got to figure something out on the defensive side, because they can't allow these many points, especially like to a team like Louisville or Virginia Tech or Cal. Like you can't allow that, because once you get into what the playoffs or the ACC championship, which is more likely Clemson, they're gonna run it up, and Clemson's probably gonna play a little bit better defense than what Miami is, and it's one stop, bro, and that could be it for Miami. So I think it's just more defensively. They gotta clean that up somehow. I don't know what they can do. I mean, defensive line, linebacker, somebody got to do something, because you're just letting these people run up on you, and you're putting more stress on your offense that needs to be there, because you're having to have these comebacks or having to just keep up putting up points against teams like Louisville. And when they're like lesser teams than what you are, you're just putting more stress on your offense and having your first team out there more than they need to be. yeah, you have Cam Ward. Yeah, it's good for stats or whatever, but do we really need to be having these type of games against these teams? That's just my only thing. So defensively, they got to figure it out.
Okay, G, what are your thoughts?
So listening to both of you, I got this idea. Miami's offense may be too good because they score real quick and then they give the ball to these other offenses so many times. Like Cam Ward's putting up these godly like numbers, but every time they do, defense is back on the field. This, you can think of it just as bad as 3 and outs. If Miami goes down in 4 or 5 plays and the defense is back out there, if they're not a good unit, then the more the offense scores, the more they're out there as well. So this comparison to a track meet, their offense is probably part of the problem. And I hate to say it that way because Cam is he's playing out of his mind. But bro, if you're scoring in 2 or 3 minutes and your defense has to go back out there, it's going to be tough to just shut these teams down for as many times as they have to. Quick note, Cal, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not a Miami hater. Cal, if there's a penalty that's called in that Cal game, Miami has 1 loss. They're a Hail Mary away from losing to Virginia Tech. And then there were some questionable calls in this Louisville game. Now, I don't like the refs deciding games, but Miami is a good team. If they were great, it wouldn't come down to these last couple moments or a ref not making a call or having to have the last possession in the game. And I think that's where the line is drawn. They're a really good team. I think they are just a notch under being great. Cam Ward is great, but you can't allow Cal, Virginia Tech, Louisville to put up 40-plus points and then try to scrape by. If you're dropping 40, it should be a comfortable win, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never looked at that. The offense maybe scores too fast instead of putting a drive together. Kind of when I look at that now, I can see kind of maybe how Bama's defense struggled because they would score really fast, and then that defense would have to go back out there.
It's the same thing. They're not getting rest either way.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
You
catch.
say that. No, you say that, but this Tennessee game, Alabama had drives.
They did have, but they had stops.
All right, sorry. I just wanted to put that out there.
That's crazy. Okay. Okay. Moving right along. We're gonna go back to the Big Ten, and we got to talk about a team that's 7-0. Okay, ranked. Kirk Signetti. All right, got them boys in shape. Indiana put Nebraska to shame, winning 56-7. Second time in history Indiana has started 7-0. They are one of the leaders in the Big Ten with no conference losses. Curtis Rourke had an outstanding day, 17 for 21, 189, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Justin Ellison having a great day on the ground, 9 carries, 105 yards. He averaged 11.7 carries, 11.7 yards per carry. Just gashing the Nebraska front four. Indiana recorded a touchdown on 8 of 11 drives. Nebraska was 1 for 11 on their drives. A big day for the Hoosiers defense as they recorded over 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 3 interceptions. Nebraska rushed for 70 yards and didn't have a great day. Raiola played like a freshman. Certainly has a lot of growth to do. 28 for 44, 234 yards, 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. Now, we did say the only bad thing about Indiana, Rourke is out for a couple of weeks to heal his hand. So Tavion Jackson will be getting a start next week against Washington. But however, is Indiana a legit Big Ten threat? Go ahead, G.
Oh man.
Oh,
The legit is the part that I deal with, right? Because we have different definitions. We talked about that in the group message. They're a good team. They seem to be legit. They're checking the boxes that they need to at the moment, and that's okay. I think teams like Indiana are different than, let's go back to a team like Miami. Miami is supposed to be great. People are thinking of Miami as being this great team. They need to dominate these wins. You can sneak by as an Indiana team because you have a coach who comes from the FCS level or D1 AA, wherever he came from. I believe it was James Madison. So regardless of how you win at Indiana right now, it looks good because you're just winning, and that's what he tells his recruits, right? Follow me. I just win. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got any glitz or glamour. I just put up results, and he's done that. To be a legit contender, I think you have to either if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, and they haven't yet. So to say they're a legit contender, I don't know, because who is comparable that they've played to, say, an Ohio State or in Oregon? Because, right, those are your two contenders, and Penn State. Until you knock off one of them ones, I'm not going to call you a contender. Right now, you're climbing up the ranks. Like if this was UFC or boxing, you're not a contender until you've reached the number 2 or 3 seed in the conference. And the only reason that they're there is because Oregon has a loss, and it came from, you guessed it, the number 1 team in the country. So my Big Ten contenders are Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State. Indiana beats one of them, I'll call them a legit contender in that conference.
Okay, now just to pause, they do play Ohio State, okay? In November 23rd. The rest of their schedule, they play Michigan State. Would you consider Michigan State? Okay. Michigan.
No. And that's because I need Michigan to be good as a Texas fan, because that would be a quote unquote impressive win. But they've fallen so far from their national championship. It's bad. It's up there after Ed Orgeron's national championship win that season after. It's comparable to that drop off.
Okay, Ohio State, they do play on the 23rd. So if they win that game, you would consider them a threat, a Big Ten contender.
Absolutely. I think if they beat them, watch out, because that's the type of team that can make a tear, because Ohio State is a sound team. Again, Will Howard cost them being undefeated right now because of poor decision making. I mean, credit to Dan Lanning and his 12-man penalty, but Will Howard had the ball in his hand, had a chance, and just came up short. So yes, if Indiana can handle business and even just look good against Ohio State, if they lose by 1 possession, okay, because you're right there with the best of them. If you go out there and you lose by double digits, I'm sorry, you just had a Cinderella season.
Yeah.
Okay, James, go ahead.
I can agree with that. I just real quick, I just saw a tweet last night about this, and it's like, Nebraska considers themselves a football blue blood, pours unlimited resources into football, flexes a fake sellout streak, hasn't even mustered a bowl appearance in nearly a decade. Indiana, hey, what if we gave football a shot this year? And that's really how I see it, bro. They're not a contender yet. They just decided to play football this year instead of just focusing just on basketball. Until they beat like an Ohio State and a Penn State, like G said, in Oregon, they're just having a really good season. A basketball school is having a really good season, and that's just the way I see it. I mean, G said it all. That's all I can put onto it. Is just basketball schools having a really good season, and that's it. Until they beat Ohio State, and then they got them coming up too, so they got to be impressive in that game to see where are we putting Indiana after all this, because they're 16 for a reason. It's because they haven't played anybody really. So
facts. I'm looking at their schedule now, and the wins are impressive, but I'm like, okay, I see the undefeated season.
Yeah. So
okay, but you can say the same thing about Michigan last year and Ohio State this year. Ohio State didn't really play anybody until they had to play Oregon, and then Michigan last year didn't have to play anybody until they had to play Ohio State. So why didn't Indiana get the same grades? It's quiet.
You have a Michigan team that went on to win a national championship.
Yeah,
I didn't know whose turn it was. Listen, I can tell you right now, FIU, they're basically an FCS program. Western Illinois, they got a generic mascot. UCLA hasn't put up 20 this whole year. Charlotte, I didn't know they had a football program. And then Maryland, they're 3-3. They just beat USC, who's got their own problems. And then Northwestern, they got a substitute football stadium at the moment. So you talk about Michigan last year. Michigan and Ohio State, they beat teams who are middle of the road. They got 4-4s, some 5-3s. They're not great teams, but they're beating teams with winning records. Indiana is playing and winning against teams that are, I'm sorry, just aren't very good. Nebraska got hype after their Colorado win, but they're still in a rebuilding stage with a freshman quarterback. Indiana's a good team. They're playing a good style of football. Unfortunately, I can't give them their praises, their full praises, until they beat somebody like. I mean, they play Washington. College game day will be there. If they can rattle off wins against them in Michigan State, then I say look out.
Yep. Okay, so we'll put a pin in Indiana. James, you ready? Colorado's road to redemption. Okay,
No redemption.
this is a redemption. Colorado wins against Arizona, ruins their homecoming. By the way, 34-7. Shador, quarterback one, to me for sure. 23 of 33, 2 touchdowns. However, he did have 2 bad interceptions. Um, it is what it is. Lashante Webster had 8 receptions, 127 yards. Now, here is the stats. That's why I say this is a redemption game. Colorado outgained Arizona 398 to 245. Colorado was 9 of 18 on third downs, while Arizona was 3 of 11. The turnover battle was even. They both turned over the ball 3 times. Colorado outrushed, let me say that again, outrushed Arizona 148 to 107. Colorado had 7 sacks on Arizona. Arizona only had 1 on Colorado. Colorado's defense showed up big in this game on the road. They worked their way to 5-2, only 1 game away from being bowl eligible. And they're number 4 in the Big 12 standings. There's still a chance. 3-1 in conference. Do we believe in Colorado? Do we believe, James?
No, I still don't. What do you want me to believe? Tell me that. Like, what am I believing?
There's a chance that they can win the Big 12.
Oh, okay, they win the Big 12. Okay, I was like, what am I believing?
If they win the Big 12, they go to the playoffs.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Like,
And
it's a
All right,
redemption because
so-
of last year how they played.
oh, okay. Now that the redemption, I thought you were trying to say like a redemption from the loss to Kansas State. I'm like, bro, it's Kansas State. Like, what do you expect? But anyway, so I would say that it's not a redemption. I think they're supposed to be this way. They're supposed to be playing this way. And me being the Colorado hater, hey, they needed this win. Arizona came out playing terrible. Fafita and McMillan experiment, put a pin in it. That's it. That's done. I put too much faith in Arizona, to be honest. Too much faith in them. Colorado, they're a good team. They're solid. Going forward in the Big 12, they have some big games coming up. And like I told you against Baylor, that Tech just lost. They will get snuck up on by these Big 12 teams. It's just how the Big 12 goes. And who they got coming up next? Let me see real quick.
They got Cincinnati, Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State.
See right there, Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a good team. Texas Tech also a good team. They just had a bad loss against Baylor, but like I said, it's the Big 12. They beat each other up year in and year out every year, and they'll be lucky if they don't come out of the Big 12 with more than we got Cincinnati Tech. I'm not worried about Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. If they can win those 3 games, Oklahoma State, Tech, and Cincinnati, yeah, okay, cool. Like redemption year. But again, this is the Big 12, and these people like to put up points and throw the ball. So kudos to Colorado for beating Arizona. So I still am the Colorado hater, and I still think that they need a lot more going forward. But hey, yay.
Yeah, that yay was crazy. Yay was crazy. G had some technical difficulties, so he had to step out. Well, hopefully he gets back in by the end of the show. All right, James, I got this question, and I've been thinking about it all night. Okay, what if Clemson wins it all the right way? What if they win it all the right way? No recruits, okay? really playing their high school kids, really developing them. How do we look at Dabo? How do we look at the college football world as a whole if Clemson does it the right way?
I mean, it's just more just I guess Dabble getting the last laugh for him.
Mm.
Just because I mean, like you said, no NIL stuff, no recruiting in that type of way or anything, and you still win it all. Hey, that says it all. And I would talk my shit if that happened at the end of the year. If I'm Dabo, I'm
Really?
talking my shit off the rooftops. It's like, see what I can do. I don't need that money, bro. Like this, you see this, but I don't see it happening. Regardless, they still got to play a really good pit team, and then more than likely they're playing in the conference championship, and they're playing probably Miami. And also, I just saw right here that they're playing South Carolina to end the year off. We all know how South Carolina defense get down. So I don't know. I think Clemson they haven't really played anybody since they played Georgia at the beginning of the year, and they've had to, put up the points and making themselves look good. Like, yeah, we fumbled at the beginning of the year, but we're still a good team. But they haven't really played anybody either. So I think it's more just their schedule's been weak,
Mm.
and that this Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh and South Carolina game will be telling of Clemson going forward. Just because it's just Virginia Tech, they play really good when they want to show it to a big game. Pitt's been good all year, and then South Carolina, they just like to just play defense, and the defensive line just wants to beat up the quarterback. So yeah, it'd be dope to see Clemson get on top and win it all with no recruits and stuff. But I just don't see it happening. Still, there's too many good teams, and we saw at the beginning of the year with Georgia, they struggled. So when they play these better teams and going into the playoffs and stuff, playing your Oregon, your Texas, and these teams that have these recruits and have this money to pay them, I think that's when Clemson looks real shaky and looks like frauds. They're not frauds right now, but it can be exposed as frauds going into the playoffs. If they get blown out by one of these better teams that have these recruits and stuff, and they're like, see, you have to transition into this new era of college football. But I don't know. We'll see going forward, though.
Gee, you came right back in time. Welcome back to the party. Um, the question that we have is: what if Clemson wins it all, doing it the right way? No transfers, no no NIL really. What will the college football world look at Clemson like? Like, what would they look at the atmosphere of the college football?
I mean, honestly, I think you would just have to tip your hat to them, but you'd handle business the same way that you have been. If you're a big D1 school who can do it the right way, kudos to you. That's going to be one person's way of doing it. That's one coaching staff. Keep in mind that if they're not bringing in transfers, their NIL donors, they're supplying big checks, and they're making it really hard for these athletes to leave, and they're making it really hard for athletes to come in. If they win it all that way, cool, kudos to you. If I'm a coach somewhere else, I'm saying, all right, that's fine, that's cool, but I'm going to keep getting the best players from other schools whenever they want to leave, because why not just be stacked? Because Clemson has to run into these stacked rosters, and if they can go toe to toe with them, all that means is you've coached your kids up better than someone else who recruited. But again, you're getting a 1-year rental, and that's what you sign up for. If you don't want to take the quote unquote shortcut, cool. We both end up at the same place regardless.
Okay, you missed the question. Colorado's road to redemption. How do you feel about that?
They're proving me wrong. I knew that they would be better. They won 4 games last year. I had them winning 8, so that still seems like it's doable. Winning a bowl is going to be huge. It's hard to root against them. Not that I do, but that media hype at the beginning of the year, which has quieted down a lot now, it was just going crazy. I don't like Travis Hunter going out there and making a campaign speech for himself for the Heisman. I'm not a fan of that. We all know what you're doing is impressive, young man. You don't have to compare yourself to another young brother who's just trying to get it. You don't have to pit two bad bitches against each other, as my friend Greg says. So I don't like that, but Dion, hell, do it for the culture. You know what I'm saying? If for nothing else, show young brothers, show these young men that if they want it, they can go out and do it. And it might not look pretty, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but if you're getting beat at the end of the day, does it really matter? Because I can tell you all that loyalty that was in Arizona this weekend. I wish they would have had. I bet they're wishing for some of that Louis and Gucci luggage that Dion brought in.
Yeah,
That's true.
okay. All right. So that was all the questions that I had for you. I appreciate you guys. I got one game to preview, okay? And if y'all have some questions that y'all just want to ask or we just want to talk about that happened this weekend, we could go ahead and do that. I think this game has the biggest implications on the playoff in the SEC and just going forward of how we're going to look at both of these teams, okay? You may say they're fraud. Some of them you may say they have losses both on their schedule. One to Notre Dame, one to USC, okay? One team has Texas at the end of the year. Another team plays Bama at home. LSU, Texas A&M. Okay. Listen, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it off top. Nussmeier is a better quarterback than Connor Wegman. However, LSU's defense has showed up these last couple of games. Texas A&M defense is going to show up in this game. We already seen Nussmeier go against the number one, on paper, the number one defensive line against Ole Miss. And his offensive line kept him clean most of the time. How do we feel this game's going to go? What are you worried about? Just give me your analysis.
You go ahead, G.
I'm worried that A&M is going to win because I don't need their fan base getting hype and just getting themselves too excited because their season is going to come down to what happens November 30th, whether they like it or not. They know that if they can lose every one of these games but beat Texas, they'll call it a successful season. And some Texas fans may see it the same way. I don't personally. We got bigger aspirations in Austin. But I don't want A&M to win. I think LSU has figured something out with young Durham, right? The freshman back that they got. Like you said, Charles, their defense looks to be coming along without Harold Perkins, which is kind of crazy to say. That young man is going to be taken early in the draft, even with his injury. So it is impressive to see that they've kind of come together as a unit and looked impressive. I think it ultimately comes down to, and it's the SEC, so why wouldn't it? I think it comes down to the trenches. I think LSU's offensive line against an A&M defensive front that is pretty good in their own right. Whoever comes out of that battle looking better, playing better, I think ultimately they'll be the winning team.
Campbell versus Scorton. That's going to be a matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is going to be a matchup.
On that right tackle against Shamar Stewart too. You know what I'm saying? Or if they flip sides, if they try to get Scorton on that right tackle, look out because he's a problem. That big fella. Texas wanted him. He chose A&M, but he's damn good.
You know where he was recruited? You know where he came from?
Purdue, I think.
Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue had that talent. Just on a regular day losing.
Just
games.
rotting on the shelf.
Hate to see it.
Bottle of Ace of Spades just chilling.
Oh, that's crazy.
How you feel about it? Ace of Spades.
A&M, and I hate to say it, this cult of A&M, it's so upsetting to see that they're striving right now, and it pisses me off. But I'm
the fact that y'all both hate A&M is bad is crazy.
Oh man, but I hope LSU comes out like the LSU offense I've been seeing. Nussmeier throwing up for 500 yards or whatever he needs to do. But again, that defensive front with Texas A&M, it is scary. We saw what they did to the frauds over there in Mizzou, but their offense is shaky, bro. Who they played this past week? Mississippi State almost lost. So this is what we're gonna see if A&M is for real or if they're really, really frauds. Because for me, they're on that little, pedestal,
They're
not
teetering.
pedestal, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
teetering from frauds to okay, they might be good. And I don't know where to lean at yet, just because they look good, but then they drop these ugly games, or they have these close games with teams that they shouldn't have close games with. So I'm just like, where are y'all really at? Like, what do y'all really look like going forward? And then of course, every A&M fan got that game circled at the end of the year. Even if they're 0-8 right now, that game is circled, and that's their national championship, bro. So I mean, I think A&M is more looking at Texas down the line more than what's in front of them. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but I haven't heard an A&M fan or the players or anything that's like, yeah, we're starting for that national championship team, that national championship, that playoff spot, whatever. All I've heard is Texas and A&M game is back. We're going for, Austin showdown and all this stuff. I'm like, bro, if y'all are this team that's supposed to be, y'all jump to the SEC first, thinking that y'all could do better over here, and y'all haven't shown it yet. So I don't know. I'm just an A&M hater, so I just keep spewing on. But I think it's just more LSU just got to come out and keep firing, just fire on that offense and just keep that defensive line at bay. And I think they can, to be honest. LSU's been playing a lot better this whole year. They had that ugly USC loss, but after that, they've been playing really well. So I think they can pull this out, maybe even blow them out, to be honest.
Okay. That's the only game I really had to preview. Me and James will talk about more on Wednesday on our episode. Just a couple of questions just to pop off. How do y'all feel about Florida State?
What's there to feel?
LOL.
Okay, I just wanted the instant reaction on that. SMU, how do you feel about SMU? How they're doing this year?
Pony up. They're balling. Private schools
Okay.
balling.
UNLV versus Boise State this week. Gentry versus Malik Harris. Who do you got?
Give me the Rebs.
Yeah, I
too
think.
Much.
Yeah, I think Genty goes for like 2,000 yards, but it's not gonna be enough. But I think UNLV still comes on top.
Bounce back week for Nebraska and Ohio State. Does Nebraska have enough to knock off Ohio State?
It's gonna get ugly. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
Okay. Oklahoma versus Ole Miss.
Hotty toddy.
Oklahoma can't put up points to save their life, bro.
Navy versus Notre Dame.
Ooh.
Triple option is gonna be something fierce. Good luck to them boys with the gold lids.
They both got gold lids.
Well, Navy's got like designs and stuff. Notre Dame is just strictly gold.
Do they?
Navy ain't all gold.
I thought they were.
They got the N on there or like the little sheep or whatever it is, the little ram.
I thought that was on their jersey.
Alabama, Missouri.
Alabama.
Battle of the frauds.
Hey,
that's great. Vandy versus Texas.
In Nashville, it might be scary hours for UT. I hope it's a win. I'll be glad if they come out. They could win by 1 point. I'd be thankful.
USC versus Rutgers. USC lost the game to Maryland, by the way. Horrible USC play.
Things are getting bad in Southern California. I like the Fighting Shianos.
Okay, and Illinois, Oregon.
James, go ahead.
Oregon. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a game. It's gonna be a tough fight, but I think Oregon still pulls it out. Illinois is a good team, so
I'll watch it.
All right.
Yeah.
That's really all the games I just wanted your reaction of that's coming up this week. We do appreciate y'all coming by. G, go ahead and tell the people where they can hear you on the podcast world.
Oh, for sure. Appreciate it. At Brews and Banter _pod on Instagram. Podcast with James and our boy Greg, where we just talk nonsense. 3 grown men talking about everything pop culture, food, animals, If it's on social media, we're talking about it, and we're probably wrong about it. But come by, show some love. Appreciate y'all having me today.
For sure. As all, we appreciate you, me and James, coming through. This is Over and Under podcast. We will be back Wednesday. We will have this episode up for you Monday morning, and also have the video up. Be looking out for us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X as they call it. Subscribe to the show, please. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us. All the good stuff, just to help and support us. As always, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming by. And this is the end of Over and Under. We are out.